Anyway, GM, let's get this party started. Here we go. Welcome, everybody. Sweet. Welcome, Amy, Roseanne, Pat, Ada, Pete, Jasmine. Good morning. Doug and Kryn. Excellent. Great to see you all. Who else is here? Corey, Michelle. Hey, Michelle, it worked. GM, Steve, Lorraine, Emily, Mac, Robin. Great to see you. Tiffany, Carla, and Sheldon. Right on. Oh, we got iPhone 16 in the house.
No, I still had to do it by hand.
Uh, well, thank you. Great to see you here. And Irina, GM, Mehilani. I think we got everybody. A few more folks coming in. Awesome. Courtney, there we go. That'll do. All right. So one thing we are constantly in the habit of is building our self-confidence. If anyone would like to read along for the group to get some practice, I'm happy to share the stage, so to speak. Otherwise, I'm happy to read it too. We're building a daily habit. Does anyone want to read? Okay, my turn. Self-confidence formula. First, I know I have the ability to achieve the object of my definite purpose in life. Therefore, I demand of myself persistent, continuous action towards its attainment, and I here now promise to render such action. Second, I understand that the dominating thoughts of my mind will eventually reproduce themselves in outward physical action and gradually transform themselves into physical reality. Therefore, I will concentrate my thoughts for 30 minutes daily upon the task of thinking of the person I intend to become, thereby creating in my mind a clear mental picture of that person. Third, I know through the principle of autosuggestion, any desire that I persistently hold in my mind will eventually seek expression through some practical means of attaining the object or position I desire. Therefore, I will devote 10 minutes daily to demanding of myself the development of self-confidence. Fourth, I've clearly written down a description of my definite chief aim, and I will always work until I develop sufficient self-confidence for its attainment. Fifth, I fully realize that wealth or power or position can long endure when built upon truth and justice. I will engage only in transactions that benefit all whom it affects. I will succeed by attracting to myself the forces I wish to use and the cooperation of other people. I will induce others to serve me because of my willingness to serve them. I have eliminated hatred, envy, jealousy, selfishness, cynicism, and I've developed a love for all humanity. For I know that a positive attitude towards others will always bring me success. I will cause others to believe in me because I will believe in them and in myself. I will sign my name to this formula, commit it to memory, and repeat it aloud once a day in full faith that it will gradually influence my thoughts and actions, so I will become a self-reliant and successful person. GM. GM to that. What makes the difference? Just a little bit more. By the way, I'm dropping the link to this doc here if you want to have it on your own. There you go. It's in the chat. All right, next, initiative and leadership. That's what makes the difference. Having chosen a definite chief aim as my life work, I now understand it to be my duty to transform this purpose into reality. Therefore, I will form the habit of taking some definite action each day that will carry me one step near the attainment of my definite chief aim. I know that procrastination is a deadly enemy of all who would become leaders in any undertaking, and I will eliminate this habit from my makeup by A, doing some one definite thing each day that ought to be done without anyone telling me to do it. B, looking around until I find at least one thing I can do each day that I have not been in the habit of doing and that will be of value to others without expectation of pay. C, telling at least one other person each day of the value of practicing this habit of doing something that ought to be done without being told to do it. I can see that the muscles of the body become strong in proportion to the extent in which they are used. Therefore, I understand that the habit of initiative also becomes fixed in proportion to the extent it is practiced. I realize that the place to begin developing the habit of initiative is in the small, commonplace things connected with my daily work. Therefore, I will go each day as if I were doing it solely for the purpose of developing this necessary habit of initiative. I understand that by practicing this habit and taking the initiative in connection with my daily work, I will not only be developing that habit, but also be attracting the attention of those who will place greater value on my services as a result of this practice. GM. So there we go. 640 words. This approach is not common, but neither is being incredibly wealthy. So you have to do some uncommon things. And like we talked about yesterday, I know some people are like, well, it feels weird to talk out loud to myself. Yeah, until it doesn't. So just keep going. Make initiative and self-confidence just a habit, just a second nature to who you are and what you do. I also had a request from a few folks to quickly go over the comp plan PowerPoint again. So before Daine gets here, I'm going to fly through those slides and make sure you guys know that there are two multi-million-dollar systems nested inside of Renatus. Plenty of people will go do real estate. Millions and millions of dollars coming your way over the next decade or two. Because, I mean, once you figure out real estate, you're not going to stop. You might change the flavor, you might turn it up, turn it down, but you're not going to stop for the rest of your life. So, millions to come. But while you're here developing the skills, you might as well have a marketing business that holds hands with your real estate business. Yesterday, when we listed out all the people that will be in your real estate business, accountants, attorneys, loan officers, agents, inspectors, appraisers, all those people, each one of them needs our program. So what we decided to do was get paid to build a team of professionals for our real estate business. Because you're gonna need to pay anyway, right? You're gonna need to pay your inspector. You're gonna need to pay the insurance agent for all the deals that you need covered. Since you're talking to that agent about deals, you might as well talk to them about Renatus. How are their goals going? You know, are they on track to retire? Are they on track to be debt free and have their kids' college or their kids' business funded? If not, maybe you should take a look at our program. Anyway, let's jump into this. The compensation plan. It's important that you learn this because, well, one, this is how you get paid. But two, if you don't know how you get paid, you're not going to do the things to achieve that payment, to achieve those earnings. When you get a new job, you are clear on their compensation plan, right? This many hours, this many dollars. Here's your compensation plan. Or if you're working on some sort of commission or performance-based thing, you understand, your insurance. How many policies equal how many dollars? So you get clear on the comp plan. Be clear on this compensation plan too. So there's a few steps. Very simple, but we want to make sure that you are developing skills and becoming self-reliant. So we're going to do what's called a decentralized training where we hook you up with a few ICMs to walk you through the process. And it could literally be paint by numbers. If you follow the instructions, literally, that's all it is. If you want to be creative, sure, but follow the instructions. Here we go. Congratulations, welcome. You've started your journey as Renatus ICM. To start, you will be making 30% of the first 5,000 in CV. CV is commission value. The commission value on your essentials is 1,080. On your Extreme Plus combo, it's 12,000. So on the first 5,000 of CV that you generate, you will get paid 30% of that. So that's 1,500 bucks. in your pocket. And at this point, you've achieved the 1-star status. So now your next goal is to make another 10,000 in CV. And you get a raise. We're going from 30 to 40%. So on the next $10,000 that you generate in CV, you're going to get 40% of that. That's $4,000. Now we're talking. At this point, you've generated 15,000, 5 to earn your 1-star and 10 to now earn your 3-star. At the 3-star level, you're now in a 50% earning position. 50% of the CV that is generated from your enrollments, from your referrals, will be paid to you. On the remaining 35,000, that is your goal. 5 plus 10 plus 35 is 50. 50,000 is the benchmark to becoming a full 5-star qualified ICM. Now, on that last 35,000, you're getting paid 17,500 to still be in the trainings. I'll tell you a story in a second. Let's keep going. Now, you've done it. You hit the milestone called 5-star. You get the pin, you get a new thing in your back office, and your checks go from 50% to 100% of the CV. So now if you sell in essentials, you get $1,080. And if you sell in Extreme Plus, you get $12,000. Incredible. So through the training process, you're going to get $23,000. Well, heck, the program's $26 to get in. A couple bucks here and there for a challenge, for a ticket to a convention, different things like that. You know, just a little bit of costs along the way. But you practically made your money back. But this is step 1, become a 5-star. Okay. Some people, they do it in 2 or 3 weeks, right? You call up 5 friends and you say, I'm doing it, do it with me. Other people, it takes them 2 years. I don't know why. Well, I do know why. And I know how. I don't know why. You got to talk to enough people. It took me 8 months to hit the 5-star. And in that time frame, you know, you get paid. You build skills, you build a network, you build a reputation, you quadruple, quintuple, 10x your knowledge around what's possible here in America with the amount of business that you can do. It's exciting, but that's step 1, be a 5-star. Some of you have yet to do it. We have a challenge coming up, a 90-day challenge. We will guide you through that. And then beyond that is what we call the 5-star creator. And now it's your job to turn around and pour some of that knowledge and training into a new student, into a new marketer, a new ICM. And what the company does, what Snyder decided in the design, is to pay you 10% of any of the commission that's generated from any of your team members. So I remember getting my first guy 5-star. It was actually my brother-in-law. His name was Nick. And he was a skeptic at first. It was so funny too, because I told him all about real estate. Come on, do it, come. He came to a few classes and he was like, I don't know if I could do this. I said, all right, well, if you ever hear of anyone who's struggling with their real estate and they need a quick buyer, I'm a buyer. And he's like, dude, what are you talking about? You still work at Jiffy Lube. You still, you know, you don't have $1 million. How are you going to buy these houses? I said, don't worry, man. I got the classes. Well, about 6 months later, his mother-in-law was about to lose their house to foreclosure, his wife's mom. Both her parents got laid off, couldn't make the payments. I stepped in, was able to do a short sale. We made $20-something thousand doing that deal. And I paid Nick a referral fee because he wasn't on the team. He didn't take any education. All he did was introduce me. And then his eyes lit up and he goes, this is real. Let's do this. And so I helped him join. He called a bunch of friends, came to some workshops, told them what happened, and he became a 5-star. Now, everything that he produced, I made 10% off of. And so every time he made a sale, $12,000, went to him, and 1,200 went to me. So creating 5 stars. A different way of thinking about it is you have to achieve the top of the bucket in order to get paid the full check. So right now, brand new, you're starting out, your goal is to hit 5,000 of CV. Now, what's interesting is you could do that with one extreme combo. You'll get paid 1,500, but then obviously the 12,000 is more than 5,000. So you're going to be already into that 40% bracket, and the remaining will pay you out at the 40% level until you hit 15,000. Then the last step to hit the top of the bucket, you got to pour $50,000 into this bucket of commission value. And at that point, you will make an additional 17,500, putting 23,000 in your pocket. So while you are helping new people go through the process, and by no means do I mean babysit, daily stuff you don't have to do. We do a lot of that already. Really, your job is to just introduce, put them in the room. You're going to get overflow sales. That's where you have someone under you who's maybe a 1-star, and some of the commission will go to them. Some of the commission will go to you, as long as you're a 5-star. There are some situations where you enroll someone who becomes a 5-star before you, and their sales will skip you. And we'll go into the full thing next Monday, because it looks like Dana's here, and we want to ask him what's working in his world and how these things are, manifesting from last week to this week, how his deals are going. Anyway, last thing on this here is overrides. Overrides are paid only to 5-star qualified affiliates. When a team member makes a sale, their 5-star affiliate is paid an override. That's a 10% bonus, so to speak, that comes from corporate, and will pay you for bringing on a new person who became a 5-star. So there is a lot of money out there to be made. There's a lot of people out there that need our help. One interesting way of putting it is, we've been in business for 15 years, helping people do real estate, build businesses, save on taxes, get out of debt, save for retirement. And since we started, right, the population of the U.S. has grown and grown and grown and grown, and more people are still being duped by the system. They're still being robbed in taxes. They're still being fooled by the banking system, and that's causing suffering. Unnecessary, in my opinion. Absolutely. So the mission that we're on is to reduce suffering while making a profit. It's a beautiful system that we got here, but you got to tell more people. You got to spread the word. You got to build a new reputation, and it'll pay off. It'll pay off. It'll make a difference. So the mission that we're on is even more important now. Even more important. People need housing. People need opportunity. They need a light at the end of the tunnel, so to speak. And, I hear out in the world, people are dreading their grocery bill. Dreading your grocery bill means we need a drastic change. Introduce them to the program. I know they're going to say 25 grand, that's a lot of money. You're going to say, not compared to what you can make, and not compared to what is getting robbed of you every single year. If you're making 65, 70,000 a year at a job, you're paying 25 grand in taxes. So entrepreneurs, real estate investors pay way less in tax. You're going to keep that money and put it to good use. So like I said, it's mission oriented. It reduces suffering. It produces a profit. Get serious about this, and you will really understand the compensation plan and the power that you can have here. If you keep it a side hustle and you do, one day a week, and maybe you'll tell someone this week, maybe not, you're not going to get the benefits of the program that we're all getting. So be serious about this. And join us for the next challenge if you want more help with that. I did find out that we're extending it one more week before we launch it. So emails and posts to be coming about that. So pay attention. Okay, Wealth Wednesday, welcome. Today we get to hear from a special trainer. His name is Mr. Daine Clark. He has been doing this game for nearly a decade now, and he has done wonders in the world of real estate. And the thing that we are constantly harping on here at Renatus, at Investor Secret Network, at Team Elevate, everything that we're doing here is honest and ethical real estate that provides safe, clean, affordable housing. Okay. You got to think, what do you want? Not necessarily would you live there or not, because we buy plenty of houses we would never live in, but we still need to make it safe, clean, and affordable. And Daine Clark has done just that and built himself an empire. 300 plus deals under his belt in various states, various types, different asset classes. And the thing that I love about him is the way he goes about teaching and training is to reduce the risk. How do we go and build a profit without taking unnecessary risk and helping people in the process? And he's done just that. A bunch of you are now following his method. Some of you are doing different stuff. You're doing commercial, you're doing wholesaling, you're doing other stuff, but you still gain a ton of info by listening to these conversations and watching the students take action, like Tim, like Gilda, like Tamara, like plenty of you out there. And the deal structuring is what creates the win-win. Going back to what we talked about in our self-confidence formula, we will engage in transactions that benefit all whom it affects. And Daine Clark is a fantastic example of that. At first, the thing that most students have to get over is the price of the program. He realized that that was his yearly income. And when people tell that to you and you say, oh no, I'd love to, but that's more money than I'm making a year, you can say, yeah, that's what Michael said, that's what Daine said, that's what Bill said. Plenty of people, we get it. We get it. But at one point, it's just a number on the screen. It's all in your head. His first year in the program, he paid off all of the program's cost, paid off his car, got out of debt, and got into his first deal. And then people started really saying, how do you do this, Daine? And he actually was one of the people that helped become a 5-star creator one year and turned around. And now a bunch of his students are successful and making a difference in their lives and their communities. So who's next, baby? I see a room full of eager students here, happy to support you in your real estate journey here at Renatus. So let's give a big warm welcome to the trainer for the hour, Mr. Daine Clark, GM.
Good morning, everybody. GM to y'all. Excited to be
buddy.
here. And yes, I hope everybody had successful conversations in the last 7 days. I know I did. Had a couple of real doozies. Super excited.
So tell us the tagline: all wealth
All wealth is built through conversation.
built
All
through
the people.
conversation.
It's the humans that own real estate that you want to buy. It's the humans that have money that you want to borrow or raise. It's humans. All wealth is built through conversation, baby. It's awesome.
So, yeah, we've got a question in your head. Oh, yep, it's in your head that there's money. It was gifted 11,000 from an old IRA 20 years ago. There's the money. Awesome. See, it's all in your
Just
head.
showed up.
You just got to look.
Thank you, past self,
Right.
for
Well,
forgetting
cool. We got
about
some
it
new people
until
on the
now.
line.
What's that?
We've got a lot of new students in the last 2 weeks or so, Daine. So if you could just give a little bit more of your story and your experience about real estate and how you used the Renatus program to get the most out of it while you still had the job, while you still had the new babies on the way and the whole thing, and help paint a
Yes,
picture of success for our new students here. And then we'll
you
get into some
bet.
Q&A.
And I did get a question throughout the week, and I'll admit that when people ask questions outside of the meeting, sometimes it's a quick answer, and sometimes I'm just like, oh man, will you bring this up on Wednesday? Because everybody needs to hear this. This is amazing. It's such a good question. So I did get one. I'm going to try and cover that today because this person said that they do their best to be on. I'm not sure if they're here. but sometimes they're working right now, and so they can't always listen at this time. So I don't see the, oh, no, he's here. So yeah, so maybe and if you want to stay anonymous, I'll leave that up to you. But yeah, so I've got some stuff. But yeah, so really I think the only thing that people ought to know about myself is that when I grew up on a dairy farm, and I talked to cows for probably the first 20 years of my life. And um, it didn't carry over. It didn't carry over to school. It didn't carry over to my career. It didn't carry over to college. Like in school, my own mother actually was the one that coined the phrase painfully shy. And somehow that got out. And so I was known as the painfully shy kid. And so grew up the first 2/3. Let's see, yeah. How old am I now? Yeah, the more than the two thirds of my life, I was labeled the painfully shy kid. I joined Renatus, and in fact, I was just talking to my wife about this, that we need discomfort, we need disgust, we need like duh in our lives. And there was a moment actually that I remember very vividly. My wife and I were talking about this just last week, because we're talking about our children, right? Um, my son is 9 years old, and for the first time I've ever heard him say, he says, "Dad, are we rich?"
Nice. Nice.
It's never crossed his little mind yet. 9 years old, and it was funny because uh, well, this is gonna turn into a whole other side story. So really quickly, I said, "I'm rich, you're not." However, we'll leave it at that. But my wife and I were talking about how like, hey, like our kids are coming of age where these things are like starting to come across their minds, and so it's time. It's like better than ever to help our kids experience, especially one thing that I'm gonna share with you guys today, around this like disgust, disappointment, letdown, like blah, right? And there was a time, because again, painfully shy, I joined Renatus. I'm just like, I handed my credit cards. You know, Mitch Nelson was my enroller. I hand Mitch Nelson my credit cards and I say, run them. And I was like, this better freaking work, dude, because this is a lot of money. Like, this is more money than I have ever had in my entire life. And I'm using credit cards to pay for this. And um, anyway, so I get going, and kind of a rocky start because, well, all wealth is built through conversation. And I ended up doing a deal that I was like a peon. Like the amount I contributed to this deal was chump change. But at least I was like, hey, I can say I did a deal. I got into one. My name is on the paperwork, and I'm in a deal. And so Mitch would often, Mitch would present all the time, and Mitch would oftentimes say, hey, Daine, come and share a testimonial. And I get up and I do that. And Michael, and I think you know exactly where I'm going with this. And I get up there in front of all the guests on a Thursday night, and I give my testimonial. And I'm that, like, in my mind, I'm just like, yeah, trying to tell people, and I'm trying to do my best here. And I get done, and Mitch does his thing, and everything's finished. And then if you guys know the value of the meeting after the meeting, which again, we could have a whole conversation about that, but then the meeting after the meeting commences. And Michael walks right up to me and he says, Daine, you have to correct me if I get this wrong, but from what I remember, like, Daine, if you ever talk to my guests and everybody else in the room like that again, you are not invited. You are not welcome at the front of the room. You're not allowed. Off limits. And so I felt like in that moment I had a decision to make, because part of me was like, I wanted to say, F you, I'm never coming back, goodbye, because I mean that hurt. Like, if I'm gonna speak like, and because again, at first I didn't know what I did wrong, but he's like, if you ever do that again, you're not welcome here. And so part of me is just like, okay, am I like, F you, I'm out of here, like never, I'm never coming back, or like what's going on? And so anyway, so Michael let me in on, he's like, Daine, you talked to your shoes. Like, you
Yep.
told your toes. all about this deal. Nobody else. And you were monotone and like not like zero excitement, zero emotion, no nothing. Like literally, you told your toes about this deal and you put everybody to sleep and then you sat down and Mitch had to wake everybody up and and
Welcome to
proceed.
public speaking.
And so I had a choice. Like I was disgusted, I was angry, I was hurt. Like all of these emotions, if you will. And I was grateful that Michael at least he sent me a text message and he says it was a thing called present yourself. It was like a training that you could go take from somebody. He says if you want to ever step foot at the front of a room again, then go take this training. Anyway, so I have this text message and but the point is we all have to experience this like disgust with our situation, with a scenario, with ourselves, with an outcome, whatever. And oftentimes will lead to two outcomes. The first one that my brain first went to was I'm out, I quit. Like this is not for me. I don't want to be around people like this. Or I accept, challenge accepted. Like this must mean, and I learned this later on, but looking back, this must mean that this is my time to overcome this thing. If you're feeling those emotions, those feelings, those thoughts of disgust, like, oh, like I'm sick of this, it's a beautiful thing. And so my wife and I's conversation, because my wife doesn't want our kids to feel this kind of stuff. It's a motherly nature. It's a motherly thing, and I respect that. However, I told my wife, if it wasn't for Michael telling me that my testimonial was garbage and going through that, processing all those emotions of ultimately disgust, I wouldn't be where I am today. And so I was telling my wife, like, they need my kids, our kids, they need this. They need to feel disappointment. They need to feel disgust. They need to feel. Now, obviously, we're going to help them process that. But I don't really remember feeling these, deep emotions as a younger child. I had to learn this kind of stuff in my 20s. And so I was telling my wife, like, what if we can help our kids learn this in their teens or preteens even? My oldest is 9. Like, what if we can help them experience this, where we literally sit back and watch my 9-year-old fail miserably at something that causes uber disgust in his own mind, but we're there to help them process it. We're there to help them understand it. We're there to help them overcome it. Like my parents weren't there when Michael did that to me. To be like, it's going to be okay. This is good, right? They were nowhere. I was at this point in my Renatus career, I was too ashamed to even tell my parents that I joined Renatus. I was too ashamed to say, Mom, Dad, I opened 5 credit cards on the same day and I ran all of them, maxed them all out to join this real estate school. This real estate education. My parents had no idea. I refused to tell them because I was afraid that again, it would bring shame and disgust from my parents. Anywho, um, so yeah, for some reason that was on my mind when Michael was talking about like, hey, like how, what happened? Long story short, like I said, did a couple of training wheel deals, if you will, where I just got involved on, a very small level and was able to go from there. I remember the very first deal that I ever did by myself. No help from anybody or asking questions, whatever. And I made $500 because I put a property under contract all by myself and wholesaled it to a guy. And I asked the guy, how much would you give me as a wholesale fee? And I had this property under contract at 140,000 and figured this property would sell for 300 plus. So decent spread, and it wasn't bad. Like, it just needed cosmetic repairs was all. And so I asked the guy who was gonna buy it from me on wholesale, how much would you give me? And he's like, $500. I was like, dang it. All the stories in Renatus of wholesales are like $3,000, $5,000, $10,000, $50,000 wholesale fees. And I realized again, my disgust was like, I asked the wrong question right there. I should have said, do you want, I had it under contract for 140. I should have said, do you want this for 150? Who cares how much I have it under contract for? He doesn't need to know. Anywho, I learned some valuable lessons, but that was like the first training wheel off deal. Made $500. Learned from my own mistakes. I don't know. Maybe I guess I could call that a mistake. I mean, making $500 by mistake, sure, we'll take it. But it just grew from there, building that confidence. Like, okay, this works, but that was my mistake. I asked the wrong question there and made $500 instead of potentially $5,000. And so did the next one and didn't make that mistake and made a lot more, and did the next one and didn't, so on and so forth. And it's crazy because you do one and you're just like, where was this the whole time? Like, what's that? There's a book, Think and Grow Rich. Like, where was this during all these lean years? Like, was it really this simple the whole time? Yes, it was.
It really was. The trillions are out there.
Yeah. Yes. And so that was, sure, it probably took me a little longer than a lot of people's stories in Renatus. Like, I go to nationals and I see all these people's stories and especially some of the new ones. And I'm just like, you know what? They did it faster than me. But who cares? I did it. We changed our lives. And to date, I mean, I don't even, I have to look at my sheet nowadays to see, because too many to count. Have done 373 deals, have put to work 97,200,000, like almost almost $100 million of other people's money. Like, Renatus changed my life. And I remember handing my credit cards to Mitch, running for 20 some odd $1,000s, and was like, this better work. And in my mind, working was defined as, I want to do one deal a year. I am now almost 10 years in, and so my goal was to do 10 deals by this time. And it would have been all worth it. 20 some odd $1,000 would have been more than worth it had I done tail. And that was my mindset when I first joined. But instead, let's see, we're not quite 10 years in, but we'll just round it up. So 373 divided by 10 years
120.
times 12, 120. Whoops. That is 3 deals a month. That's almost a deal a week.
Almost a deal a week. And he was thinking a deal a year. You're 50 times more productive than you thought you were going to be.
Sheesh.
50x.
Never done that math before. But holy cow.
I'm so glad you didn't walk away, Daine, after Michael said
Yeah,
that.
me too.
Look, guys, I don't say it to be mean at all. It was just the thing that needed to be said in that moment. And some people won't say it, and I will. So I did.
Yep. And
I also, just to be clear, said it because other people, the other 99 ICMs that were in that room, were relying on their marketing business working, right? Having those customers convert into sales so that they could pay their bills and keep running their business. And so it's not like we could be casual about this sort of stuff.
Yeah,
and
my toes were not ICMs. They had nothing to benefit. So they didn't need to know this story.
So I did it in more of defense of the ICMs who had worked all week to get a guest there, more than trying to make Daine feel a certain way. So just to be clear.
Absolutely. We recognize that now.
Perfect.
I should say I recognize that now. And I'm grateful for it. But yes.
I'm grateful for you.
Yeah. Oh, there's so many one-liners that I tend to quote in my life today from none other than Michael Huggins. Oh, good times.
Got
So,
your back.
so if I may, I had the question, and I'm going to pull it up so I can read it. So somebody didn't quite grasp, a lot of, in fact, here, some people might not know what I need to find a better name for this, but I'm calling it the Daine signature move for now, the Daine signature deal for now. Because it's kind of like a hybrid of like a subject to seller finance contract for deed, whole tail, all into one. And so I don't know exactly other than we're just calling it Daine signature for now. So I had somebody ask me like, Daine, how does it work? Like, from the text, they said, I never understand the concept mostly, but how does subject to lead to this option of contract for deed, seller finance or seller finance? And so the question tells me that there's a misunderstanding somewhere else, but we will still cover this. And so let me share my screen, actually. I've got my iPad with me today. Share iPad. And Zoom meeting. All right. Now, so the question tells me, and you can correct me if I'm wrong. And like I said, this person is on today, but you are welcome to stay anonymous or come off of mute and let's interact. So the question tells me this, that there's a misunderstanding. Sorry, that's not a very good house. There's a misunderstanding with getting into the deal and getting out of the deal, and many options to do so. Okay, so in a house, there's many ways to get into that house, and so we'll cover just a few of these. And there's many ways to get out of that house, right? In other words, paycheck. And so, and the beautiful thing about this is like the house is just a house, but you can do so many things. There's so many ways to skin a cat to make money on a piece of real estate. Okay, and now I don't do all of these, but let's talk about some of these things, right? So here's all the sexy things that I've heard people say, right? You can fix and flip the house. You can wholesale the house. We talked about that today, earlier. You can wholesale, you can rent, you can become a landlord. You can rent the house. You can lease option the house. Oops, lease option. You can seller finance. And subcategory, I guess, seller finance. You can all inclusive. The deal, and that does depend on what state you're in. If you're in a trust deed state, all inclusive trust deed. I forget what they call it in a mortgage state, but it's I was having a conversation with an attorney on this. I can't remember what the name was, but if somebody knows what that one is. Judicial. But there's a name for it when they do effectively an all-inclusive trust deed in a mortgage state, and it's I don't want to say wrap because that wasn't but effectively it's a wrap. Anyway, essentially you sell the house and you have your agreement, but there is also the underlying mortgage, right? And then there is contract for deed. I'm going to call it CFD, right? So, and this is not an exhaustive list. Like there's so many things that you can do. Short-term rental, STR, right? So there's so many ways to make paychecks from houses. Many, many ways. And I actually didn't do this on purpose, but I'm noticing that my list is kind of in order of like more hours, like more man hours to less man hours. I didn't do that on purpose, but so we could also say like new construction, right? New build. That would take more man hours than fix and flips. Okay, so like I say, some of these are not like perfectly in order, but at the end of the day, there are more active ways to make paychecks from real estate, and there's more passive ways to make paychecks from real estate. And and then even like a Jeff Armstrong notes where like seller finance, you are originating essentially a note, right? An all-inclusive or a contract for deed. Where Jeff Armstrong, like he never even like owns the house ever. He just buys the note only. And so can be super passive. Anyway, so there's ways to make paychecks on that side to get out of the deal. And ultimately, when you take your classes in Renatus, it becomes easier and easier to get into deals. The trick, the trick before you buy Renatus is how do you buy these houses? The trick after you buy Renatus is like, oh, that's how easy it is to buy a house. Right? We're going to talk about this. The trick becomes, how do you get out of the house? How do you get your money out? How do you get your paychecks? How do you cash it? Whatever. How do you exit increased, meaning compensated, meaning money on the other side? Okay. And so obviously want to learn both sides, because I have seen people where they learn like just the tip of the iceberg of how to raise money. And all of a sudden they're like, oh, that's like easy. And then they go buy a house and they're like, we overpaid for this house. We thought we were going to fix and flip it, but we overpaid. And so we're not going to make our money. And so, like I say, the trick, when you're uneducated, the trick is how do you get all this money? When you realize how simple it is to raise money for real estate deals, the trick becomes how do you get paid? And so don't stop. If you're watching the raising money classes, don't stop after you've learned how to raise money and buy houses. Keep learning how you get out of that deal, making your money, okay? And so anyway, let's finish setting up this stage. So getting into deals. Now, do deals take money to buy? Yes, they do. But do they take your money? Doesn't have to be. And so let's make a list on this side of getting into deals, how to pay for houses. Now, we're just going to use this one because, this does exist. But cash. Some people just buy houses cash and they have the money. And so you can get into a house cash and you can turn around or let's even say a lot, going down our list here. You can get into a house cash and you can fix and flip that house and get your cash back plus your profit. Right. And you can mix and match. You can get into house cash and you can rent it. You can get into house cash right. So it doesn't really matter how you get into or get out of the deal. From the question, I'm realizing that there's just a little bit of a disconnect on like, how do you end up on a contract for deed? And his question was more specifically one of these other ones. In fact, here, let's see, I'm going to try and go from like, I can't think of an order. So we're just going to start listing these. No particular order. And so let's actually erase some of these big long lines. So let's say private, whoops. Other people's money, OPM, private money to buy the house. Now you can buy the house private with cash. You can buy the house private money via a loan. You can buy the house with private money via, and cash, I would say like an LLC. You can do like an investment. The legal terminology, the legal definition of investors, meaning you go create like a PPM, private placement memorandum. You go create a fund, an official fund. There's classes on this in the education. You go create an official fund. And so investors is a legal term, not the slang term. Most people would think investors is, like they're just an investor. They're wiring money to me or wiring money to an LLC that we create. Like, no, I'm talking the legal terminology. And when I say this, let me just say this really quickly. Try to refrain from the word investors unless you're doing the legal term investors. You've got lenders and partners. a vast majority of the deals I see done inside and outside of Renatus are either the private money is a lender. Let's go ahead and just use the legal terminology for this. They are a lender, or when you're using just straight up cash, they're a partner. And so these are the legal terms when you're using private money. Watch the class. Matt Sorensen, Raising Money and Partnerships. So you're using private other people's money as a partner. They are a lender or they are an investor. And again, I'm going to draw like a little line through this. Most people are not going to do this. And so refrain from the words investor. You either have partners or you have lenders when you're using private other people's money. Let's not rule out traditional. To get into a house, traditional financing. You can go and call up a loan officer that has an official loan officer license and say, hey, I would like a loan from Chase Bank, Wells Fargo, your local credit union, whoever. You go get traditional financing. Renatus teaches all the other ways, but this is also an option. Traditional financing. It's in fact, in many ways, it's one of the cheapest options, even still today with rates going crazy. You can oftentimes find traditional financing for cheaper than you can go find a partner for, that you can go find a private lender for, or even investors, using the legal term investors, traditional financing. And then our individual's question, subject to. And really, we could probably just say seller financing. And I didn't put 4 marks here on purpose because I wasn't sure how many I was going to come up with. Again, probably not an exhaustive list. There's probably more ways that you could pay for a house, but let's say you're buying a house using somebody else's mortgage now. You're using the seller's financing, whether the house is paid for free and clear. That's fine, and they offer terms where you're like, yeah, hey, seller, because essentially a seller financing almost becomes like private money. They become your private money lender in a way. And I've always looked at buying houses on seller financing as like you're basically pitching the seller the same ideas that you're pitching the person that becomes a private lender or a private partner on your deal, because they're getting the same benefits at the end of the day. Okay, so seller financing subject to, you leave the existing mortgage in place with the subject to, or let's say there is no mortgage, seller financing. You're just telling that person like, hey, like you own this house free and clear. You want to make more than the purchase price? Because if I buy this house for $100,000 and I buy it from you on seller financing and you own it free and clear, and over the next 5, 10, 30 years, I'll buy it for $200,000, whatever your amortization chart says based on the interest rate you're looking at. Okay, and so ways to get into the deal. Now, it does not matter, and so this is why my brain went here with that question, or with how that question was worded. I'm going to read it one more time. I never understand the concept of mostly how does subject to lead to this option, contract for deed or seller financing. And so the answer really is it doesn't matter how you start. You can buy a house subject to seller financing and turn around and sell it on seller financing. And a lot of people would call that a sandwich seller finance, because you bought it subject to the existing mortgage. All right, so I bought a house in Ogden, Utah. The gal was getting threatened by the bank. They were not going, they were sending photographers, actually, or I shouldn't say photographers, but they were sending people from the bank knocking on her door saying, hey, can we come inside? We need to take pictures of your house. We are foreclosing on you. And so we need to come inside. And she wouldn't let him in because she was just like, what the heck is going on? And so that's when I came in and she was introduced to me. And so I understood that her mortgage was at like 2% or 3% interest. I forget the number, but she's at super low interest. And so in fact, I was actually just reading through, I like to save all of my conversations as much as I can, at least. And I was just, when Michael was doing the intro, I was just kind of rolling through some of these and was just like, oh my gosh, like I remember a bunch of these old conversations. Oh, where is it? But I have the very conversation for this, the story that I'm telling you right now. Where is it? Where I sat down with the gal and I essentially I told her like, hey, there's a couple options here. Like I can just buy the house, we'll buy it cash, aka private other people's money. We'll buy it cash, and we'll go our merry way. However, I've got costs if I do that. Now I can't find it. I was just looking at it. Oh, come on. Oh well. But essentially, you'll see in that conversation, right? If I show you guys some of these conversations that I've had with people, I'm not sure why it's, but you see that I like my chicken scratch at the end. So this is the conversation I had with somebody where they were like, "Hey, I think I want to." He was a realtor, and he's like, "Hey, I think I want to become a realtor investor." And so I was like, "Dude, join Renatus, man." Super cool guy. But where is it? I wonder if I can search it. Let's see. Is there a search button? Search. There it is. So here's that conversation where I talked to her about, hey, here's how seller financing can work. Where if I buy your house on seller financing, subject to the mortgage that is for closing, and we leave that there, I catch the mortgage up and I spend, I can't remember, $20,000. Oh wait, I think it's right here. No, 215. I'm sure I wrote it somewhere. If I catch the mortgage up, essentially you kind of become like the bank. And I talk about chain of title right here, where I was like, you're top of the totem pole. Like you're going to get your money if I buy your house subject to your existing mortgage. And it's going to save me money over going and getting my own financing, right? So because again, in my mindset, I am now trying to pitch this person as a private money lender more than I'm trying to tell them how they're going to make money, right? That's why private money lenders want to be a private money lender. They want to make money. So I treat them like that. And essentially I'm just raising money when I'm pitching seller financing. And so, where's there's a dollar amount somewhere. Assume the mortgage for 290, or maybe that was anyway. So I break it down. I give her option one. Option one is I buy the house, looks like for $185,000. And the house needs some work, or all this mumbo jumbo. It's funny. I was looking at this and I was just like, I can't even make sense of this. But at the time, I just remember the conversation enough that I was basically like, if you let me buy it on seller financing, I catch your mortgage up, you'll save me money from doing it the other way. And so I can pay you more at the end of the day. Essentially, I give the money to you instead of my private money lender. Do you want that money? Yes? Okay, great. Instead of my private money lender getting it. And so I give her the option one, option two, and she chose and said, oh, let's do option two. And I said, great, I'll write it up. Because in all real estate deals, let's go back to our conversation today. 9:10. Yes. So in all real estate deals, all it takes is a conversation, because again, all wealth is built through conversation. A conversation, and when everyone's like, yeah, I like the idea, then you say, cool, I'll write it up. And then money transfers. And so on the front end here, let's say you're using private money, or let's use the subject to that an example that we're already using. So when you're going to buy it subject to, basically it starts with a conversation. Whoops, I need a V right there. Conversation, people say, yes, I like that, that makes sense. And then it goes from a conversation to a contract. Everybody signs it, and then money transfers. I bought the house. So conversation, everyone's like, yeah, I like this. Makes sense, right? Go watch Jordan Belfort, Straight Line Persuasion. I like the idea. It makes sense to me. Just like that too. Like, I like the idea. That makes sense to me, right? You see that inflection? Go listen to Jordan Belfort. It's like my version of exactly what he does at the end of the day. And it freaking works. So we have a conversation. They say, yes, I like this. I say, cool, I'll write it up. And then I send a check to the title company, send a check to the title company. So money transfers. I send a check to the title company to catch up her mortgage. She got money to move, and I got the house. So money transferred, and now Daine Clark LLC is on the deed, owning this property. And so that's how you get onto the inside, or get into the deal. Got into the deal that way. And then on this particular deal, I actually did sandwich seller finance it. In fact, while I was under contract to buy it, I already started to market it and say, and was telling people like, hey, anybody want seller financing on a house? Big discount, needs work. You could basically flip it or rent it or whatever. And so by the time I went to the closing table for this closing, basically money to transfer. So for that transaction, by the time I sat at the closing table, I had another conversation with somebody where like, hey, somebody want seller financing on a house? Yeah. Somebody's like, yeah, I like the idea. Makes sense to me. I want the house, seller financing, subject to, right? Sandwich, seller financing, whatever. So I had a conversation. Here we're in a conversation. Someone's like, yeah. I say, cool, I'll write it up. Put a contract together, and then they sent money to the title company to close on that transaction simultaneously, actually. So my money entered title to buy the house. Oops, let's make that yellow. My money entered title company. They put me on title. This person's money entered the title company the same day. I'm pretty sure it was the same day. Yeah, same day. So their money entered the title company the same day mine did. Two very different contracts. And in fact, this person didn't know about this person per se, like by name or whatever. Like they knew they existed because I told them I'm buying it subject to the existing mortgage and I'm going to sell it to you with same mortgage in place. And so they knew that person at least existed, but they didn't know them. They didn't talk to them. And so conversation that came to yes, right. I'll write it up, AKA contract, and we'll sign it. Money enter title, and I got paid. Now this particular one, I got paid up front. I did not get a monthly check. I basically said, yeah, the mortgage payment is this, and so we'll just pass that on to you. And I made $60,000 because I bought the house for the 185. Yeah, 185. And I gave her, or no, I told her that I would give her a percentage if she let me do this. So I bought the house for 185 and sold it for 245. I'd have to go back and look at all the contracts. But is that 60,000? I just remember the number being 60. Yeah, 245 to 285. Yeah, 60,000. So bought it for 185, sold it for 245. So $60,000 spread. And I gave her, if I'm not mistaken, $20,000 out of the 60. Because I told her I would give her that percentage. And so made $40,000 net. I was not complaining about it. Okay. Wasn't the first one that I made 500. Okay. So really, and I hope I'm answering this person's question. I hope I'm doing this justice, that it does not matter, because I could have taken that same house. Let's say she was like, no, I don't like the idea. It doesn't make sense to me to make more money. Then I could have said, fine, we won't do that. I will go have a conversation with Jim or whoever. I'll go have a conversation with Jim and say, Jim, I'm going to buy this house. Cash. Let's use your cash. Let's use this person as a lender. Like, let's use your money and buy it. I shouldn't say cash. Buy it with your money as a loan. And so you're on the chain of title. You're top of the food chain, whatever. And so can I use your money to buy this deal? And he's like, yeah, it makes sense to me. I like the idea. Cool. Let's sign some paperwork. And at the appropriate time, you wire your money to the escrow company. And Jim's like, done. Let's do it. Like, where do I sign? And I could have done the same thing with this person if I wanted, and exited the deal, selling it like all inclusive. Something like that, right? So it doesn't matter how you enter or exit the deal, other than if the person or people on that end are like, yeah, I like the idea. That makes sense to me. Right? That's the key, is that they're like, the expectation is made. Because, for example, in this particular deal, the conversation that I had with this person was like, hey, I'll give you 9 months. Right? That was my promise to the other gal, because I told her that, hey, I will do this for 9 months where your mortgage stays in place. No more. Because, I tried to go 30, but she's like, I don't like that. No, I don't like that. It doesn't make sense to me. Okay, fine. 9 months? Yeah, okay, I like that. That makes sense to me. And so as long as everybody is like, yeah, I like this. This makes sense to me. Then yes, you can mix and match all of these things to get in and then get out of a deal. And it doesn't matter which one you choose, as long as they're like, yes, yes to your expectations that you set. And so in this person's question, when they said, I never understand the concept of how does a subject
Hello,
to.
Daine.
Go ahead.
Hello, Daine.
Mac.
This is Max. This is my question.
Good. I
Good
hope I'm doing
morning,
this
everyone.
justice.
Well, your teaching and everything you've said is incredibly useful, and so I didn't want to interrupt. However, all of all wealth is made through conversations, and our conversation got off the rails because we were texting, and I didn't make myself clear. And so I just want to state that what I was really asking about, I understand that there's many ways to get in and get out, and everything that you've showed us here is very useful. So that's, but two things that you had told a story one time about, you'd found the buyer first. And a matter of fact, you found a buyer and they had a house they wanted to buy, but couldn't get the loan on. So that's how you started. And then last week or 2 weeks ago, someone asked you about the lease option part, and you said you always use a lease option. So in my mind, you find a buyer and they have a house. And so you actually went out and bought it on retail market.
Yeah, they have a house in mind.
Right.
At least.
And then you turned around and seller financed it to them, except for, was there a lease option in that?
Yes. Cool. Let's actually use this, because this is perfect. So yeah, thank you for.
Thank you. I'm gonna mute again because I'm out in the middle of the country driving. So
No, you're good. So let's use the stage that we've created here. So, and this is why I'm like this, the Daine signature. I can't think of it because it's kind of unique. So I had this conversation first, like Max said. I had a conversation with somebody who were like, hey, I'm trying to buy this house. I'm under contract to buy this house. And for lack of a better term, the bank is flipping me the bird. And they're like, no. And even though this person is like, hey, I got 20% down. I got money in the bank. I'm making more money than I ever have in my life. And the bank said no for whatever reason. And so that's my conversation with that person. Oops. Is that they're struggling to buy the house. And so the conversation I have with them is like, hey, okay, what if I buy the house and the day I buy it, I sell or finance it to you? Do you like that idea? They're like, yeah, I like that idea. Cool, I'll write it up. And so when I write those up, I know beforehand, because again, I want both sides. I want everybody to say yes to get this deal done. And so I just know beforehand that the money that I'm going to go get over here, I have to do certain things to make everybody happy, or even just to get it done, period. Like just to get everybody to say yes. And so in that particular conversation, Mac asked about the lease option and the seller financing. Honestly, that's only because the reason I started as a lease option is because I know that I'm going to choose this option for that particular house because I mean, I'll go try. I'll go tell the seller like, hey, will you sell it to me on seller financing? But at the end of the day, if they're going to seller finance it to me, why wouldn't they seller finance it to my client, right? The original person that wanted the house. They could just offer seller financing themselves. And so the reason I do the deal that I'm showing you is because people said no, right? They had a conversation and then somebody were like, no, I don't like the idea. It doesn't make sense to me for whatever reason. And so I just know I have the forethought, if you will, that I'm going to go use traditional financing. And so I tell this person in that conversation, hey, here's what we're going to do. I'm going to lease option this to you first so that I can get traditional financing. And so I'm going to buy the house with private lenders. I'm going to buy the house with private lenders, and then we're going to bounce back and I'm going to refinance the private lenders' money out with traditional financing. Okay, so kind of a zigzag here, if you can see that. And I do this because I don't want to do a purchase money loan. Now we're getting into like 201 kind of. I don't want to go get purchase money loan from traditional financing. I want to get what's called rate and term financing. Rate and term financing, meaning if I go borrow, and let's just use easy numbers. If I go borrow $100,000 from private lender to buy the house, rate and term means I'm going to finance from traditional financing $100,000. So in rate and term, like really the term comes from, we are not changing the dollar amount. We are only changing the rate and the term. Hey, what's up, buddy? How are you? You cool to sit there and listen to this? You want to come say hi to everybody? Everybody meet my 5-year-old. Say hi. See all these faces up here?
Good
fact,
morning.
you know this one. You know Michael, right?
Hi.
He's got a son, Benjamin. You remember him? And what's the other ones? The younger one.
Remington.
Remington. Remember they stayed at our house. Anyway, if you want to go sit down, you can. And let me know if you need anything. All right. So, oh, that's right. So rate and term means we're not changing the dollar amount. All we're doing is changing the rate and the term, meaning I have this $100,000 with private money lender and I have a rate with that person and I have a term with that person. And so the traditional financing is basically going to swallow the $100,000. In other words, they are going to pay off my private money lender their $100,000, and the traditional financing is now going to set their rate and term. I hope that makes sense. And so typically my rate and term, right now I'm getting about 7%. And that's like the best interest rate known to man in a non-owner occupied DSCR traditional financing. 7% right now, probably like 6.8 875, but we'll just round it up to 7. Okay. And so that's my front end. And I have the forethought to know when I'm having my conversation with this person that I'm going to do that. I'm going to buy it using private lenders, refinance it, rate and term, traditional financing. So I set the expectation, because again, you just have to make sure you set the expectation with everybody. And so I tell them, like, hey, there's going to be phase 1 and phase 2. Phase 1 is I'm going to buy the house for you that you want. You are going to lease option it to me during phase 1. And so here, let's color code this. Phase 1 is going to be, we buy it with private money lenders, 100,000, and I lease option it. Let's make this a little fatter. And I lease option it to you. Okay, so phase 1. Buy it with private money lenders' money. I lease option it to you. You move in, right? So you give me the 20% down because lease option, and you move in. House is yours. Then phase 2, let's do purple. This one is skinny, or let's do a little fatter. Phase 2, I'm going to rate and term that 100,000 out, and then I am going to contract for deed it to you. Phase 2. Now, for my client, I tell him nothing changes to you to convert from lease option to contract for deed. Like, payment doesn't change, term doesn't change. Like, if you make 2 payments during phase 1, then technically you get a little bit of amortization, right? You owe me less money to pay off your house if you make 2 payments during the lease option, because I amortize it, right? And so I make, because again, I want them to say, yeah, I like the idea. I don't want them to feel bait and switch, to be like, hey, you made 2 or 3 payments or whatever on a lease option, and so you didn't earn any equity, no amortization, no principal pay down on your house for your first 3 payments. Neener. I don't want them to feel bait and switch like that. I tell them, no, I amortize it from day 1. And so even if it takes me 6 months to convert from the lease option to the contract for deed, you're like, financially, nothing changes for my client. They're like, okay, cool. Yeah, that makes sense. I like the idea. So that way, and I say, and if I do it this way, not only can you move in like this weekend, because I'm not using purchase money from the traditional financing, you can move in this weekend, but also, like, there's a chance that this house appraises for more than we bought it for. And because of how we do this. Anyway, story for another day. So phase 2 is once I refinance into the traditional financing, so my private money lenders are gone. They are paid off and they've gone their merry way. We sit down at the closing table at the title company and we do the official contract for deed with my new mortgage, my new DSCR loan, traditional financing, in place during phase 2. And once we're done with that, then it's like set it and forget it. You get a monthly statement, you make your payment, and at the end of the day, you could refinance me out at any time. You could sell the house whenever you want. I mean, it's your house. Paint the door pink, for crying out loud, if you want. It's your house. And so that is more often than not how I do them. And I do this for reasons. Because when this person that I'm having this conversation with that needs seller financing on the house, they oftentimes can't get seller financing from their seller. And so I wanted to create a system that we could create seller financing on any house in existence. I wanted to have basically funding sources that I could turn anything into seller financing, because I knew people would pay a premium for it. Because I've had the experience with people where they're like, yeah, like I had a house that we were selling. We had it listed on the MLS on seller financing. Had somebody walk through it and come to find out that they were only there because of the seller financing, and they walk through the house and like, it's not in the location that we want. It doesn't have the setup that we want for it doesn't meet our needs, location or, square footage, bedrooms, bathrooms, layout, that kind of stuff. But we're only here because of the seller financing. And they're like, it doesn't work for us. And so we're like, hold up. What do you want? And they're like, oh, I want this house over here. My neighbor actually is selling their house and I really wanted to buy it, but I can't get traditional financing. And I don't have any private money lenders that would, because they're not investors. And so they probably don't even know the concept of private OPM. But they're just like, they won't sell their finance to us because they want to sell the house and make their money. And so they're like, yeah, like we can't do it. So I said, okay, fine. I will buy your friend's house. And we go, mom's asking for you. We go get mom. And so I thought you sent him in here. So anyway, I guess he was a runaway. Anyway, come say hi to dad. So what was I saying? Oh, so essentially I was able to turn that house that my client wanted, and they needed seller financing, but the seller was not interested in seller financing. I bought it from them, made them happy because they're like, yeah, we just get cashed out. And then I turned around and lease optioned it to my client on phase one because I bought it private money, as with private lenders. And then I rate and term refinanced it. And then we contract for deeded it to that original client. So we turned any house they wanted into seller financing, and they paid a premium for it because they got exactly what they wanted with the terms that they needed at the end of the day. Now, do you guys want to see something cool? This one's sweet. So what I ended up doing on this particular house, because this was one of my early ones, this particular story. So what I ended up doing, how am I going to draw this? We'll just put names in here. So what I ended up doing on this was phase one is exactly as I said. I bought the house, I lease optioned it to them with private lenders. However, at this time in my career, if you will, I didn't have gobs and gobs of capital of my own just lying around. And so what I did was for the phase two, let's make this, let's do red. In fact, what's this? Is this like rainbow? Ooh, let's use rainbow. This is cool. So make it a little slightly larger. So what I ended up doing here was, let's call this, I think we used Jim before as a private money lender or as an individual. So I went to Jim, and the premise of Jim, right? You guys have heard my 4-box training. There's people want to be passively involved in real estate.
Hello?
So four boxes. People want to be passively involved in real estate. People want to be actively involved in real estate. They have properties with problems, underlying problems, and real estate is taboo. Get out of my face. I don't want to talk about real estate. So there's the only 4
Honey, can you hear
categories. Thank you. Those are the only 4 categories that people will fit into. And so Jim is in the passive box. The premise of my conversation with Jim, because again, conversation, yes, paperwork, money, transfers. My conversation with Jim was like, hey, do you want to sit back and twiddle your thumbs, have deals presented to you, you write a check and you make money because of that? You want to put your money to work? And Jim's like, yeah, I like the idea of that. That makes sense. And so I went to Jim and said, hey, Jim, do you want to use your credit? Like not just your money. Do you want to use your credit to cash in passive paychecks where you'll sit back and twiddle your thumbs and I'll present a deal to you that I already own, already have lease option, they're already making payments. All you need to do is I will sell the house to you, Jim, and you will do a rate and term refinance to refinance out the private money. And you'll bring your cash, to close or whatever, and you'll get paid for that. And Jim's like, okay, cool. So I could put some money to work and I use my credit and effectively get higher returns to do such a thing. And I was like, yeah. And so Jim put his name on the loan for the rate and term refinancing. He used his money to do the rate and term refinancing. And so I was, in this particular deal, I am literally $0.0 of my own money into this deal. And I'm sharing. So out here on the cash flow, contract for deed. Yeah, contract for deed's cash flow. So on the contract for deed, I forget the numbers, but let's just quick and easy math. Let's say that the cash flow on this particular deal is like $800 a month. Might actually be a little bit more, but whatever. Let's just use this. And so I'm giving away to Jim. Here, let's keep things color coded. So the cash flow is $800 a month. And because Jim used his money to do the financing, he paid for the origination of the refinance, he paid for the title and escrow. So he's money out of pocket. And he used his credit. I said, all right, Jim, let's give you $500 a month in exchange for all that. And then let's see, what color am I going to make myself? Let's just do white. And then I make $300 a month. Jim is the one who brought the money. I brought zero, no dollars, and generate $300 a month on this particular deal. And again, plus or minus, like concept-wise, you guys get what I'm saying. You guys get what I'm saying here. I don't know the exact, but it's some. I am giving them more than I'm taking myself, because he brought all the money. I brought nothing, and so it made sense on this front. I'm trying to remember where I was going to go after this. $500. Yeah. And so at this point, because again, I wanted to create a system that it didn't matter if I had money or not of my own. Yes, today I don't do this anymore. I don't have any more. I don't bring on the gyms. I just self-fund them. But this was 5-6 years ago, maybe, when I didn't have just gobs and gobs of money to put to work. And so I was able to do my first like dozen or so deals like this with zero money in my pocket. And I don't know. I can't remember if that many years ago I would have been able to finance them myself too. But let's say I couldn't. Let's say I couldn't even finance that many deals. I was able to go get over a dozen properties where I'm cash flowing with no money out of my pocket. And this is not a rental. This is not a short, like there's no maintenance to this. In fact, a vast majority of these houses, in fact, I would say like 99% of the houses I've done like this, I have not even seen them. And I probably never will. In fact, I just sold the same house for the third time. We don't need to get into the story because it's kind of a long one, but I just sold the same house for the third time. And I have seen the house, but I only saw it like the person was trying to sell it as like a fix and flip. And so I walked through it and was like, no, thanks. So I have seen that house, but then this house like popped up a year later to do a contract for deed like this. And I was like, sure. So I didn't see the house at that time. And it was all fixed up by that time. The person who bought it that basically said yes when I said no, they remodeled it in whole 9 yards. And then this house resurfaced and was like, hey, we need some seller financing. And so I was like, oh yeah, great. So that same house, I have not seen it in its current condition. I saw it when it was ugly. I've not seen it in its current, and I've sold it 3 times. And so for people like Jim, I can present this like, yeah, this is like very, very passive. No maintenance like rentals, no cleaning fees like short-term rentals, no contractors, no nothing. Like this is just passively, you put your name on the loan, you bring the cash to close the loan, whatever it is, cash to close. and you get $500 a month for as long as this one goes. And in fact, let's see, the house that I have sold 3 times, it is structured like this. It's not Jim, it's a different John, whatever. somebody else's name, David. And so that same house that we have sold 3 times, the Jim in that deal, the cash flow never stopped. It never, like, nothing changed for the Jim in that deal financially. I just saw to it that when the first situation wasn't working, or they didn't want it, like, so in the first situation it didn't work, and so I pulled it back and seller financed it to somebody else, and whole 9 yards. Story for another day probably. But the second time, the lady was just like, "Hey, I've got somebody that wants to buy the house. They can't get financing, and so can you give them the same deal that you gave me?" And I was like, "Yeah, sure." And so just gave it to that person. And again, nothing skipped, the payment never skipped a beat, nothing changed, anything. And so sold the same house 3 times. And the Jim in that deal is just like, "This is sweet." Now that person, the Jim, because he couldn't fathom not seeing the deal. He's seen the house. Just drove by though. He wasn't allowed to go in. But anyway. So Mac, I hope this is making sense. That simple in nature, what I'm doing here, I'm just buying a house with private money and lease optioning it. And after that lease option is in place, I rate and term refinance into traditional financing. And then we convert the lease option, or I guess we could say we execute our own lease option into seller financing contract for deed at the end of the day. And so, yeah, it's not vanilla, but at the end of the day, like, all these things are in Renatus on both sides of this equation. All these, cash and private money and traditional money, all that stuff's in Renatus. And all the stuff on the other side of this equation of getting paid, contract for deed, all-inclusive lease options, rentals, they're all in Renatus. But to make everybody happy, we just had to mix together these ingredients for this recipe. Because they wanted to move in fast, and so we did private money. I didn't want to do purchase money loan. I wanted rate and term refinance because I knew I would bring less money. I would have to bring less money to the table. And so we did the lease option because of that. And so it was really just like, okay, what do we want? How do we get it? Oh, it looks like we just do this. Private money, lease option, rate and term refinancing, contract for deed. And everybody gets what they want. They get the house that they want when they want to move in. I don't have to bring as much money because private money to rate and term refinancing takes less cash, takes less capital to do. And then contract for deed makes them happy contract for deed helps me keep the traditional financing happy because I stay on title, or me LLC stays on title. But at the end of the day, my client, they feel like they're in control, as they should be. They can sell this house whenever they want. They can refinance this whenever they want. They can call me up tomorrow and say, "Hey, Daine, I've been working on my credit and I'm going to get my own traditional financing and refinance you out and pay you off." Great. Congratulations. They're in control, as they should
Hey,
be.
Daine,
Go ahead.
I want to say thank you. That is exactly what my question was, and
Perfect.
where the lease option fit into the process. As I listen to you talk, I've always have all of these ideas running through my head, thinking if you buy something subject to in a distress situation, you do a bit of a fix, and then you sell it on seller financing.
It's possible,
just
yes.
there's margins there that you can achieve. And now that I know about your Jim and his role in the thing, you can do that process using their money, and they're happy about it. And you sold that house 3 times and you got 3 down payments.
Yes. Now
On that.
the second time, so the first time I sold it, got a big down payment. The second time I sold it, got another down payment, smaller because I wanted it to sell faster. The third time, they basically just gifted the down payment from buyer B to buyer C. So I didn't receive the third down payment. They basically just gifted and so it was almost like they bought it subject to, nothing changed for me. But still, I've received 2 down payments on the same house and sold the same house to 3 different people. And it worked out brilliantly at the end of the day. So yes. So Mac, I have to express gratitude to you because the question that you asked, like I've never taught this before in this iteration like this, you know, with the getting in and getting out of deals. But this is freaking brilliant.
Freaking brilliant.
Like had I understood this when I was new, things would have clicked a lot faster for me. So really, I should be expressing great gratitude to you for asking the question in the way that you did, that helped me realize, like, oh man, like I need to illustrate it in this fashion because it just makes it so much more simple for me to understand, but also everybody else. So thank you for basically for challenging my mind to explain it in a way like this. You formulated your question in the perfect way to stem this conversation. Arguably,
Yeah, we love a
you
good
controlled the
challenge.
conversation.
I saw Tamara had a question. She put her hand up.
Ooh,
Tamara, did your
yes.
question get answered?
I
Or
did see that.
I don't remember that question, but I do have another question. With your private money lenders, where do they come in and where do they go out if they go out? Or, I mean, I know you recycle a bunch of people.
In what we're seeing on the screen.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
so when I bought the house in order to lease option it in phase 1, they wire, and let's just use this example of 100,000. They wired their $100,000 into the title company so I could buy it in order to lease option it to my client. And so they wired it, let's say on day 1 when I bought it. And then let's just say it took me 2 months to refinance. So 2 months later, time frame wise, 2 months, I finished my traditional refinance. We had to go through all the underwriting and appraisals and all that jazz. So 2 months later, my traditional financing is finally finished, and they send a $100,000 check or wire. They send a $100,000 wire to the title company, and the title company sends that $100,000 to my private lenders. To track the paper trail. So my private money lenders get their $100,000 back plus their interest. And they go their merry way. Money's back in their bank account at that point. So basically my private money lenders had their money out for 2 months and then they got it back plus their interest.
And generally, how much have you given them for interest, or does that depend?
If I answer, it creates a reality that I don't want people to create for themselves. Meaning, if I give somebody an answer, then everybody's just going to say, oh, that's what it is. If I leave it up for people to go have their own conversations, it ends up becoming whatever they say yes to. Am I making myself clear there?
I'm not clear on what you mean.
So if I tell you how much I give people, all of a sudden it generates a reality.
Oh, got it. Like they have to give 8% to everyone.
If I said 12, if I said 8, if I said 6, if I said 15, whatever number I would say, all of a sudden everybody on this call is like, oh, I'm going to do that. And that becomes a problem because really at the end of the day, it is whatever that individual will say yes to. Because you're having a conversation with that person at that time in their life, and they have their own expectations, they have their own background story, whatever. And so it is what it is. Typically in those conversations, my favorite conversation to have with the gyms is this. So I will give you this tomorrow. Is what kind of return would turn your head? And I'll phrase it exactly how I do. When I'm talking to the gyms, like, oh yeah, you like real estate, you want to be passive, you like the idea of twiddling your thumbs, having deals presented to you. Like, cool, what kind of a return would turn your head to want you to get you to want to take money wherever it is and pull it out of and put it into real estate? And then I just shut up. I've had people say, should I even? No, I don't want to give you guys. You create your own reality. I've had people say in the cheaper than I can go get it traditionally numbers.
Same. I've had that too.
And I was just like, I had to poker face it, like, in the back of my internal expression is like, okay, yeah, I think we could do that. Yeah. Because it was, again, cheaper than I could go get it, getting traditional financing. Like, we will see yes, we will get you that, you got to make it sound like a lot. Like, yeah, we get you that much. But in the back of my mind, I'm like, oh, I want everybody to experience that at least once in their life. So no, I'm not going to give you the number, but I'll give you that question. What kind of a return would turn your head?
That's key right there. Go ahead, Pat. You got a question?
Yeah, sorry.
Yes, good morning. Daine, I'd like to know, how do you term your private money? Like, you've always said, like, they never send you the money, they send it to the escrow company or title company. How do you line item it, or how do you term it? Like, okay, this money is going back to that person. Do you just put it in as a party LLC? How do you term it?
I'm not sure I understand the question.
Okay, so
How do I term it to who? To whom?
Okay, can you move your screen up to keep, okay. a
When
little
I'm
bit
talking to
higher?
Jim or when I'm talking to the title company?
When you're talking to, can you go up a little higher? Okay, right there. Your private money person, right? OPM. They send the money to your title company. And then they get it back through the title company as well. Okay. How do you line item it, or how do you term who get, them getting paid? Like, do you call them investor? Do you just do it by their
Lender.
Okay, got it.
If they're going to go on a trust deed.
Yeah. Okay.
I do everything in trust deed states.
Yeah.
So they're going to go on a trust deed. So Jim wires his $100K
Okay.
to the title company. The title company takes our docs, right? Because again, conversation. Yeah, I like the idea. Cool. I'll write it up. And so the write-up gets submitted to the title company. Sometimes title companies, like if I go back to my early days, I would get the gyms to be like, yeah, I like that. Cool. You're going to wire to title. And then I'm like, where am I going to get the documents? And so I'll call up the title company, start calling attorneys, whatever. And title company is like, oh, we got templates. And so some of the first ones I ever did, the title company handled the documents even. When I say this is the conversation to, yes, I like the idea, to we're going to write up the contract, the title company oftentimes would have templates. Now they're like chintzy templates. They're very basic, but they get the job done. Later on, I hired attorneys, and now we have our own like in-house document creation systems. Like, it's push button, outspits documents, and it emails it to the title company. It's amazing, but it's not necessary. It's just because I like to do a lot of them and I like my time. But again, you can tell the title company like, hey, here's what we're going to do. We're going to give Jim, I'm not going to give you guys an interest rate. We're going to give Jim this interest rate with this term, for 6 months, is the term. And so the title company will take Jim's money because Jim wires directly to title. The title company, let's say we're going to use the title company's template because we're new. The title company writes up their template. And so now we have all those things in the same place. The contract is in the same place with the escrow company, and the money is being held in the same place with the escrow company. Everything gets signed. Jim gets recorded on public record on a trust deed on the property, and I own the house. And he's in first position. So he's high on the totem pole. He's high on the food chain, if you will, when it comes to getting paid. Did I answer your question?
Yes, you did. Thank you. That's exactly what I was wanting to know. How does Jim fit into this picture? So he is the lender. He's referred to as the lender. Everybody
You know
knows
what,
their
though?
positions, and
I guess there's two Jims now because
yeah, that's okay. I got it.
let's change this one to Jane.
Okay.
So Jane helps me buy the house with her private money, her private $100,000. She wires her money to title. Let's pretend my system doesn't exist, and so we use title company to generate the templates. And I sign the templates that the title company creates. That goes on public record. So Jane is now first position on title. I am the owner. So she's first position as the lender. I am the owner of the house. Now, I have Jim, who doesn't have 100 grand. He's like, let's say this one took 30 grand. So Jim has 30 grand in amazing credit. And so I say, all right, Jim, do you want to be my credit partner for phase 2? Jim, you go get a loan from, traditional mortgage. You go apply, you go give them all your documents, all, underwriting. So Jim goes to Wells Fargo or local credit union, whatever, gets a traditional loan. And when Jim's loan is approved, let's just say again, let's just say this is Wells Fargo or whatever. Wells Fargo. So Jim's loan gets approved. Wells Fargo sends $100,000 to the title company. The title company, Jim signs all the loan docs at the title company. The Wells Fargo sends $100,000. So now title company is holding Jim's documents and holding Wells Fargo's $100,000. When everything is done, they send that $100,000 back to Jane. So Jane gets her $100,000 back plus her interest. So Jane gets paid off, and then Jane has to sign a release of lien. And so now her lien is gone. She has her money, she has her interest. She's completely gone on the transaction. Jim has a traditional loan from Wells Fargo worth $100,000. Does that make sense?
Yes, thank you. Beautiful. Love it. Thank you. Thank you.
And Jane is like, can I do another one? Because she got paid back.
This is amazing. We really need your class at Renatus because you just go step by step and you break it down so that we can understand, But
Yes.
it would be so wonderful to have a full day class with you and put all the pieces together.
I got the name for it. I've
Yeah.
been figuring it out on this
Oh,
call.
What is it?
We're going to call it Unblocked.
Is it an acronym?
Underwrite, negotiate, bridge, lease, option, qualify, deed.
Brilliant.
In that order.
Unblocked.
Unblocked. So you having trouble doing some deals? Let's get you unblocked. You want to learn the unblocked method? Build yourself a multi-million-dollar portfolio.
Totally. Now so Deborah says, so confused. How you can get a loan on something you don't own? I'm not sure I understand
You
the
own it
question,
initially.
but I think I know what you're meaning. Because
Well,
Jane,
you own it, but Jane and Jim don't own it. How can they?
so the chain of events is this. So in phase one, which we've made purple. So in phase one, we have an owner and a lender. And so in our example, Daine is the owner, or Daine LLC. We'll just say Daine. Daine is the owner. Jane is the lender. In phase two, let's see, what color was phase two? We actually did phase two as purple. Sorry. Phase one was orange. I think I can actually just go like this. You guys get it though. Orange. Okay, so phase two. Oh. Orange. Phase two was purple. The owner becomes Jim. I sell the house to Jim with my loan in place from Jane. And so at the beginning of phase two, Jim owns, Jane is the lender, and Jim refinances Jane so that lender. Jim refinances Jane so that Wells Fargo is now the lender. Whoops, Wells Fargo. Or whoever. I should stop advertising for Wells Fargo. I actually have never used them.
You call them Fells Wargo.
What's that?
Fells Wargo.
Fells Fargo. Bank. I do not recommend using Wells Fargo even.
Yeah, they're criminals.
Yeah. Just a well-known name. Chase Bank, I don't know, probably feel the same way about Chase Bank.
They're also criminals. They actually pay the largest SEC fine in history.
Yeah.
Markets.
I mean, I give you, if I say who I actually use, it's just a broker. Not everybody knows what a broker is. Not everyone knows what a broker is. So let's just say bank. Traditional bank.
TradFi. Traditional.
Yeah. And so during phase two, I sell it to Jim, basically subject to the loan I have with Jane. Jim then refinances Jane out through the bank, traditional financing. And now the bank, in fact, I'm trying to think of some of the names of these because I use a broker, we shop around rates. And so it's always somebody different. It's whoever's giving us the best rate. But yeah, does that make sense, Deborah?
Yes.
Cool.
I'm not convinced of that answer.
Are you increasing the price at all in between these?
So in phase one, I buy it for, let's just use our math, use our analogy here. For every, well, we do this, because then we can times it by $100,000 or whatever. If I buy it for $100,000, whoops, orange. So phase one, if I buy it for $100,000, I sell it for a number that you choose. Based on the number you have your conversation with your client, I'll give you guys this one. I sell it for a minimum of 110 in phase one. Phase two, I mentioned that I do not want anybody to feel bait and switched. And so it stays the exact same in phase two, where on this side of the equation, on my purchase money, so basically on this side over here, from phase one to phase two, nothing changes for my client on the other side, my contract for deed. Because in phase one, my client, what color is my client? Green. In phase one, during this, period, my client has the lease option. Oops, lease option. And then when I do my refinance, we convert to the contract for deed. Everything stays the same. Other than the header of the document. The header of the document changes from lease option to contract for deed. But the payment is the same, the term is the same, the interest rate, well, lease options don't have interest rates, but on my lease option, it's actually like, you know, $1,026.58 or whatever. There's a comma right there. And so my lease options have some odd number because effectively I just took the interest rate that I'm going to charge on the contract for deed, ran the math with the forethought that we're going to convert it. Like basically we started with the contract for deed in mind, the lease option. And so the payment for the contract for deed is $1,026.58. And it's, I haven't always been asked, but every once in a while, an underwriter, because I have to submit my lease option to the bank that's doing the refinancing. I have to submit this lease option to this refinancing bank. And sometimes they're like, your rent is $1,026.50. Like, has anybody ever heard of a rent payment with cents? 58
So
cents?
essentially, you're reverse engineering the whole process.
Exactly.
The
We
anticipation.
start with the end in
Finance.
mind.
Yeah.
Big time on this
Awesome.
signature, Daine signature move. But yeah, and my client does not feel bait and switched where anything changes. Like, no, the payment is the payment that it's going to be at the end. The payment will be today in the beginning, phase 1 and phase 2. It doesn't change.
So what
It
kind
gives
of
them
a
the warm
time
fuzzies.
frame? What kind of a time frame do you have between the two?
Phase 1 and phase 2?
Yeah.
My shortest is probably 3 weeks. My longest, I actually still have some that have gone years where we're still technically on phase 1. Reasoning behind that was we went to do the phase 2 because, hey, I call my client, hey, my financing is done. Do you want me to schedule us to do phase 2? And the guy's like, oh, I just got hit with a tax lien. Let's see, what do you call that? He owed some taxes, and so I think it was like a tax judgment or something. He's like, I just got nailed with the tax judgment, and it's quite a bit of money. And so he's like, let's maybe not do the phase 2 because as soon as we attach that person to title, the judgment also gets attached to the house. And so he's like, let's protect the house for what ifs. And so let's not. And I said, you know what, my friend, like, to me, nothing changes financially. Your payment will still be 1,026. Your amortization will still be the percentage that it would have been. Like, nothing changes for this person financially for him to be like, yeah, let's just leave it on a lease option for now. And we've gone years for this person. And he never called me back to say, hey, let's do phase 2. But if he called me today and said, hey, Daine, I'm going to refinance, like, his balance is the same regardless of whether we did phase 1 or phase 2. And I just do that as like a moral thing. I don't know what to say, add to that. I just do that like as my conscience, as a moral conscience, that I say, yeah, like, I will honor our deal again with the end in mind, as if it was the contract for deed, that you're getting all that amortization as if it was the contract for deed. Nothing changes. And the guy thinks I'm the greatest thing in the world. He sent me referrals even. And so
until he does that, though, you are still paying your private lender, Jane?
no, because we did do phase 2 on my end.
Okay.
The bank is in place, but we just never did from phase 1 to phase 2 on the other side of the equation, on the client side of the equation. We're still just on a lease option. I'm on title, he's on a lease option. And we never sat down at the title company to do the contract for deed, seller financing close.
So who's paying the taxes and insurance then?
He still is. Like,
Gotcha.
again, we're treating it with the end in mind. And so his payment fluctuates. So this was probably what it was back in, so this particular deal, we did it in 2019. And so here we are in 2025. Whoops. 2025. And holy cow. 2025. And I bet you his payment is like $1,113.28. Pulled that out of my head. Because the payment includes the taxes and insurance. And we all know that taxes and insurance always go up.
And that's something.
And so even today, even though it's on the lease option, we're treating it with that end in mind as if it was a contract for deed, and his payment includes taxes and insurance, whichever way they go, up or down.
All right. Well, just wait until they
Brilliant.
watch another class. You guys won't be able to sleep tonight.
Yeah.
This is
I
too
just
exciting.
realized what time it is too. I gotta get
Too
busy.
exciting. Folks, you realize that your income is in your control. And following the principles here, that's the key. It looks like Tim's got a quick question, and then we gotta wrap it up for today.
No, we're done. I just want to say we need to have a whole track called like Daine's like a Daine's Daily Digest or
There's no way it
something
would
like
fit
that. There's
in
like
one. Yeah, it's gotta
no,
be.
it needs a whole track of like you gotta do this, gotta do blah, blah, blah. So I don't know what you'd call that. But yeah, Daine's on track. Okay. Thank you,
Cool.
Daine. You're
Love you,
awesome,
Tim.
and I appreciate you doing that. I'm kind of bummed out that you didn't share the 100K, not 100K, but like what you charged. It's basically a bridge loan that you are asking for them from other people. And sometimes we don't know, like you said, like you don't know, like
Well,
500 bucks, I'll give it
mathematically,
to
you
for
got to do a
500 bucks.
minimum. You got to do a minimum of like 8%, or you're coming out of pocket. So 10% is a good rule of thumb, but you could do 11, 12, 15, 25.
Well,
I'm
I
there
guess the
aware.
other way around is when you're borrowing the money, how do you make it so that it's a good for them, beneficial for them? Because it's like a few weeks, maybe 6 weeks, 8 weeks, at max 8. But I'm sure it could be done in a month. But like knowing that way, you like we don't get a little bit bamboozled, or not bamboozled, but like we lack something and we only get like a $500 wholesale fee, as opposed to we could have gotten 10 grand if we would have just said the right thing or
Are you
something like
saying
that.
like that I didn't give away how much I give my private money lenders?
I would say it would be nice if you at least kind of give like around what you think. Not to say like this is what I do, this is my program here, but like say, hey, like this is usually in these kind of situations probably the best scenario on how to do it, like what's
Low as
typical.
possible.
But anywhere from 4 to 20.
Yeah, I could probably afford to pay 15%. Like off the top of my I honestly I could probably afford to pay like 17% to a private money lender like that and do this and still come out. Because at the end of the day, it's not I don't know if I want to say hard. It's not hard to essentially calculate your bottom line. To say, okay, here's all my costs involved to do all these things. And to say I'm paying 6% to the private money lender versus 17% to the private money lender. You can run all those scenarios and say, okay, here's I'm making money or I'm not. Or even say like, oh, well, technically I'm not making money on the front end, I'm breaking even. Like let's say you're maybe breaking even on the front end, but then all the payments that you receive are cream. Like that is the one thing that I would recommend is just make sure that if you had to sell this house in 2 months, in 6 months, whatever, that at the end of the day, you're not underwater in the beginning. Like if you can make it to where you're at least break even right from the start, then all the cash flow you receive is cream. Because if you make it to where you're technically underwater in the beginning, then you have to rely on cash flow to make up for the underwater and then your profit, if that makes sense. And so like I had
so
one guy,
just do your numbers and see what you want to afford.
Yeah.
I just want to But I'm just thinking about
So
just
then-
that private money lender at the very beginning of like, what's a good rate for them? Because you got a lot of bridge loan people. You've got like some financial companies who are willing to do midterm loans, but they're charging you 57 freaking percent for only 3 months of holding costs, or something.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, maybe don't do those ones. There's cheaper money out there.
so I just want to like say,
But if it
like, give
works,
them a
it
stuff. I
works.
say, hey, we're gonna do 10%, and then you only give them like 1 month of thing and say, hey, thanks for the 100K. Here's your $100, or here's your
Yeah.
$80. So like
It'd be
oh, that's it.
800. It'd be $883. Because
Okay, yeah. Okay, yeah. So 800, yeah, not $80.
Sorry,
Yeah,
$833.
yeah, that's right. That's right.
So Dane, if I
Yeah,
if I
10 divided by
understand
12.
this correctly, what you're saying is that they print money. Money isn't what's important here. It's that as long as everybody's problem is getting solved, that will be reflected in the numbers, right? I mean, if the numbers don't work, then try a different set of numbers. As
Yeah.
long as everybody's getting that win. Sometimes 4 or 5 people are winning. It could be 4%, it could be 20%, it could be whatever. And there are standards, but as long as everybody is coming out with what they're looking for at the deal, it's a deal.
Mm-hmm. Like I have one deal that I'm giving my private money lender or private money partner, and that's in this scenario, it's a private money. Let's see, what would we call Jim? Private money credit partner, 47% on their money. I only have one like that. I probably have a couple, maybe in up as high as the 30s. But just, I think Tim mentioned that company doing 57% or whatever. Like I've got one that I'm giving away 47%.
Why?
Because it worked.
Oh, wow.
Well, Richard pointed this out when we were playing cash flow a couple times, when you can take loans when you're playing the cash flow game, and it's a 10% interest only payment, but it equates to 120% ROI when you pay that loan off. And so it's, again, if it works, it works.
Yeah. Like that whole deal is probably producing like 160%.
Yeah.
Cash on cash, and I'm giving away 47. So I was like, there's still, to Tim's point, you just calculate your margins and say, I won't lose money at the end of the day. And so if I make 160% and I give away 47, like, chump change. But let's say I'm only making 12% and I give away 11, then it's like, I receive the chump change kind of a thing.
Thanks, guys. That helped a lot with something I'm getting through right now. So
Perfect. Well, guys, get your tickets to E3. Let's keep this mastermind going. Let's expand the network. Let's make a bigger difference for more people while making a lot of money. Doing it the right way, honestly, legally, ethically, morally. Love it. So, Daine, you've been a great example. And getting into the technicals, not everyone can do, but you do a great job of it, making it clear. So, appreciate you all for being here. Pat, Gilda, Tamara, Emily, all of you. Amy, welcome to the team. Everybody else, go spread the good word about Renatus, the community. Make some sales, make some money, put it to good work, make a difference. Bye for now, everyone. Bye.
Appreciate y'all. Love y'all.